And at the end of today's call, Shannon and I are going to stay on to answer any questions that you guys might have, just like we did last time about the Kickstarter kits and the contents or how to use any of the products. And for those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting Shannon Scheller, she is our Thrive Together Talk moderator. She's also a member of our Kick Cancer Board, a nutritional therapy practitioner, and a fellow cancer mama. The list goes on. Shannon, we are so lucky to have you on this team and a part of these talks. So before we jump in, I just want to tell you guys about our current fundraiser. It is our 10th birthday, if you haven't seen us blowing up your social media. But yes, we are celebrating our 10th birthday this week with an awesome campaign that directly supports a new initiative that we're launching. And so for those of you who jumped on early, you're going to hear a little bit more about it. But we are working on launching the Kick Cancer Advocacy Program. So what this program aims to do is to meet families at the beginning of their journey in the hospital, where we would work directly with their oncology team to support them and through it all, but really to make that contact at the very beginning. So how amazing is that? And I know this might sound ambitious and you might be sitting there thinking like, no way, you guys aren't even going to get past the hospital walls. But guess what, guys? We are, and we have, and we're currently working with a hospital in Miami to do just this. They've been more than receptive and they are excited about the partnership. And our hope is that through this first partnership, we can refine the details of this program and then expand it to more hospitals across the country, which at that point, we will be leaning on all of you for introductions. Shannon said it perfectly before everybody jumped on this call, but we were talking about how you guys who are actively in the hospitals going through this journey have the most pull. So those introductions are huge. So we really, truly believe that this is where we can make just a massive impact as Kick Cancer. So if you guys are interested in being a part of this at your hospital, we're not quite ready to expand yet. I mean, we still have to get our feet on the ground in Miami, but reach out to me. I'd love to explore this with you more and have the other hospitals geared up for when we're ready to get moving. So, okay, so back to our birthday campaigns. The funds that are raised this week will go directly to this program and helping make it a reality. So if you can support us by donating or sharing, we would be so grateful. I will put the link in this chat. And with that, I'm going to pass this off to Susan so she can introduce our very special guest.
Yes. Hello. Thank you guys for being on. Thanks for joining. If you can turn your cameras on, we'd love to see you. It just makes more of a community experience for sure. And I don't know about you, but when you're on a Zoom, it's way more fun to look at everybody than just look at yourself. So that's at least in my experience. I'm really excited to introduce Autumn. I've actually had the privilege of knowing her for over a decade now, which is crazy. I don't know, Autumn. I feel like I knew you right before you had your son. And how old is he?
He's 9.
So yeah, weird. So crazy. So I do feel like it's definitely it's been a while. And anyways, we got connected. I don't even remember how we originally got connected, but I really actually think it was because we were buying the Paleovalley products and we just like fell in love with these products when my son was going through treatment. And I'm like, who are these people who actually came up with a healthy beef jerky? Like, this is my husband and son's love language. How do I find these people? And long story short, I reached out. We got connected so quickly. And not only did we get connected, but Autumn and her husband decided to completely get behind us and partner with Kick Cancer from day one by just sharing basically the gifts that they have created, which if you follow me at all, you follow Kick Cancer, we've been talking about their products for years. You get them in our Kickstart kits, the beef sticks, the organ complex, the superfood bars, the vitamins. There are so many incredible products, the electrolytes, all these things. But since day one, they partnered with Kick Cancer and have been donating their products into our kits. And in addition to that, their products are like, it's very rare that I'm able to talk about something if you're really confident about it. And I think it helps having direct access to Autumn and Matt and being able to ask them questions like, hey, what is going on here? They recently launched and co-founded a new company called Wild Pastures, which is a regenerative farming practice where they're sourcing meat from regenerative farms, it's a hard word to say, in the US and shipping it to your doorstep. And this is incredible. It's like really not been done before at this kind of scale from my knowledge. And so for those of you who are like, where do I get clean meat? Where do I find some of these options, right? Because the grocery store doesn't have them. And where do I get it from places that are these smaller farms that are trying to do it right? So all that to say, Autumn has been a part of really making a difference in the world of health. She will share a little bit about her story. I'll let her do that, but she suffered from some pretty debilitating experiences in her own life. And that journey led her to be here today. And when, it's funny, I was reading through her bio before, and I've had her on my podcast. You guys have probably seen me talk about her on social media for years, but I had to read through her bio because there's very few people in the world that have done what she's done with a 9-year-old son and running multiple businesses. She's a master of science in holistic nutrition. She's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She's a certified eating psychology coach by the Institute of Psychology of Eating. She was in a soil advocacy training program. She's a fitness trainer and a doctoral candidate. So I'm like, I've never felt bad about myself, but I'm like, oh my gosh, where do you find all this time? So she's amazing. And I'm excited that she gets to share with you today. And you guys are going you're going to love her. She's amazing. But also what she shares is really impactful and will help you understand why do you spend a little bit more time shopping for healthier products at the store, or why are you selective? So Autumn, thank you. We appreciate you being on.
Well, that was way too generous. And I just want to say I'm not that awesome, and that you were the ones who inspired me when I first met you and heard about your mission. My niece had cancer when she was 8. And so I was touched and I was like, oh, these are the people I wish I had known all those years before. And so the work you're doing is incredibly important. And yeah, thank you for the introduction. It's always an honor. I just love your organization and everything you stand for. So I feel very lucky to be partnering with you.
Thanks, friend. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to let Shannon kind of just start the conversation with you, Autumn. And I want you guys, Kimmy, Elizabeth, Zoo, Erin, Selah, Cheyenne, any questions that come up, please put them in the chat. Like as you kind of come up with questions or thoughts around what is being discussed, we love these to be interactive. So I'll let them take it away, but don't hold back on putting your questions in the chat, and we can try to get to those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely jotted down some questions that I think will be applicable to where we're at right now with our kids and just food in general. But yeah, like Susan said, definitely throw them into the chat. We'll address them towards the end, or just open it up and allow you to ask them towards the end as well. So Autumn, I'm so excited to get to talk to you. I actually met Autumn in person at my first cancer retreat in 2017. And so she spoke at that retreat. And even back then I was like, wow, she's so smart. So between her and Susan, and like both of them inspiring me to go back to school and just get more education and learn more how to support our kids and so forth. So thank you guys for what you do. You are incredibly inspiring. So Autumn, I would like to hear more though about your story and why you became so passionate about health. I know Susan started to mention it, but just let us know where it all started for you.
Yeah, so basically when I was about 10, I started having digestive issues that no doctor knew how to treat. I was just bloated. Felt like I had a ball in my stomach. It got so bad one night I went to the emergency room, and they just told me that I had irritable bowel syndrome because they had ruled out any more serious pathology. And so they told me to take Beano and Gas-X, and then it was a stress-related condition. And so I did nothing. And as I got into my teens and my digestive issues continued, my mental health issues also started to become very apparent. And now we know this gut-brain connection exists, but back then that we didn't understand it. And so then I became anxious and depressed, and I just felt physically and emotionally uncomfortable most of the time. And then I got into substances. Even though I did talk therapy and they put me on psychiatric meds, still, I didn't feel like myself. I felt numb. It was just kind of a snowball until I eventually got kicked out of my parents' house because I was just struggling. And fortunately, I still went to college because obviously I love learning. Learning is what keeps me moving forward. It's my favorite thing in the world. And then I eventually made my way down to Los Angeles to become a dancer, because that was what I grew up doing, is dancing, and eventually worked for Tracy Anderson. So I looked really fit, and I put on a good show.
So you were a dancer?
You what?
I didn't know you were a dancer.
Yeah, that's what took me down to Los Angeles. They were like, if you're gonna dance, you have to do it now. So, and when I met my husband, he was the only one who could really see past the facade, the smile, and the fact that I was really fit, but I wasn't doing well at all. And he said, we have to do something. You are making it happen, but you're kind of a mess and you're suffering. And so we went to doctors in Los Angeles, and they didn't know what to do with me either. And he, as a desperate last attempt, we got on the internet and found people were using diet to treat digestive issues, which at the time was crazy. But we adopted a whole food diet, and my digestive issues were gone in 30 days. Over the course of the next year, my mental health shifted so miraculously that I didn't even recognize myself. My outlook changed. I was just an entirely different person. So I decided I needed to go back to school and figure out why this happened. And so, like Susan said, I did a lot of studying, and I just submitted my dissertation now, or just like 2 days ago. So pretty excited about that. And we founded Paleovalley because when I was a fitness trainer, I was on the road a lot, and I did a world tour. And even though I had rediscovered how to have my health, it wasn't convenient, it wasn't easy, and the options weren't available at the time. This was back in 2012. And so we decided, with no prior knowledge of food manufacturing, that we should do it ourselves. And so here we are. We have a few companies now, and it's a big family business. And so it doesn't feel like work, even though, it's a tricky task to maintain integrity and quality. But it's a labor of love for us. And I'm so glad to be doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where we have this commonality that either it's a diagnosis or conventional medicine isn't able to help us, that we all start diving into this, like, how can we integrate something along with it to help us out, because something's just not working. This isn't right. So how can we be part of this? And I think that's a huge part as to why any of these parents are here right now, is learning how to come alongside their child and their oncologist and do this. So obviously we have you on here because you run right in line with the things that we believe and teach. So what are some of the general principles that you live by as far as food?
Yes. Thanks for asking. And a lot of the things that I will mention today are also in alignment with things, Dr. Naisha Winters would, recommend. She's an integrative oncologist. I know Susan knows her well. So one of the most impactful things, I think, for myself and for anyone going through this process is just learning to balance blood sugar. And I think just like we did first, is switching to whole foods is a really easy way to do it, because we have all of these ultra processed foods that have what they call acellular carbohydrates, which means kind of the cellular structure has been broken, and our microbiome in our body is not used to foods that would elevate our blood sugar so rapidly. So 80%, Dr. Naisha said, 80% of cancers are driven by blood sugar and insulin, according to Harvard research. And so what that looks like is removing ultra processed foods. I really don't eat them anymore. And it was really hard at first, but I can tell you after a while, it gets easier, because your body gets used to it and you start to notice how you feel. And sugar, refined sugar, it hides in everything. And it's not like I never eat it, but if I eat it, it's going to be on purpose. So I'm checking my condiments, I'm checking my yogurts, I'm checking tomato sauces, everything. It is literally hidden in everything today. And so just being mindful, being aware that bread, just everything that you have. And also it's important to know that there was this really cool study where they looked at 800 different people and their blood sugar response to various foods. They had them wear like a a continuous glucose monitor, and then they ate bananas, and then they ate cookies, and everyone's blood sugar response was completely unique, right? Some people could eat cookies and there wasn't a spike, but bananas were a problem for them. Some people had a real problem with tomatoes, grapes, you name it. And so I think it's really important that we understand exactly what's going on with our blood sugar for us. That can be done monitoring our symptoms, our mood, our energy levels, but also wearing a continuous glucose monitor or actually testing yourself. So learning to stabilize your blood sugar, avoiding sugar, refined sugar whenever possible is a great place to begin. The second one is going organic. That's what our company is. We found a lot of products out there that, were made from whole food ingredients, but not everyone was paying attention to how those ingredients were created, right? So organic agriculture, we're not using pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers, and we then don't end up with them in our food. And I was actually really lucky to be able to interview Dwayne Lee Johnson. Does anyone know who he is? Yes, I felt so lucky. So he was the groundskeeper, Benicio School District in California. And he was, I think, the first one really to win a case against Monsanto because of his occupational glyphosate exposure. It was a really cool moment. We're doing a docuseries, and his interview was really impactful. But anyway, so that was working with glyphosate. Admittedly, that's different than, the amounts we might be exposed to in our food. But glyphosate residues are almost everywhere today. Grains, corn, soy, all these ultra processed foods, right? Meat. I think Zen Honeycutt, you guys are probably familiar with Zen Honeycutt. She's Moms Across America. She goes and tests our fast food and other foods for these glyphosate residues. And they're, in fast food products. I think there was one analysis she did where in 20 products, the glyphosate residues were in all of them. And so choosing organic food is also really, really important. GMOs also, not great long-term safety, but, and then also upgrading our animal products. So I just finished doing a docuseries all about this, but conventionally raised animal products can contain residues, right? Antibiotics, hormones, growth hormones, potentially pesticide residues, as well antibiotic resistant bacteria that could deleteriously affect your microbiome, all of that. But also they just have a different fatty acid profile, and we can get into that, a more inflammatory. I just did the beef nutrient density project. That is my dissertation. And we looked at and cataloged the different fatty acid ratios in meat across North America. And it's pretty remarkable how distinctly they change. And so grass-fed and finished animals and pasture-raised pork and chickens that actually roam on pasture, that's different than free range, that's different than cage-free. You really want to look at chickens and pigs that are out on pasture. You really want to look for ruminants and cows that are grass-fed and grass-finished. So those are my two first. And then also, I really like vegetables, right? Vegetables are going to fill you up. They're going to provide a number of amazing benefits for your microbiome. There's different kinds with different benefits. I always try to get, my little goal is, and you've heard this from other people, I'm sure, but 30 different kinds of plants every single week into your diet. It becomes like a game. You go and, oh, I need to try this. I've never seen this at the grocery store. And so, but I even break it down. I was kind of inspired to do this by Dr. Terry Walls. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Terry Walls. Yeah, she's amazing. So your cruciferous, like 2 servings of cruciferous every single day. That's just like something I try to do. It's kale, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower. They're really, really helpful for detoxification. And Dr. Naisha Winters was able to teach me they are also helpful for tumor suppressor genes. So cruciferous vegetables every day, fermented foods every day. Now, I'm not someone who really likes fermented foods, the taste, but I literally just take a spoonful every day. Everybody hears great things about probiotics, but there's trillions of live bacteria in raw fermented foods. And so it is better, I think, than taking probiotics. It's going to create that diversity and help the beneficial bugs in your gut to thrive. And then also 2 servings of greens every single day. I like romaine, endive, watercress, even These are going to be really rich in folate, and folate deficiency is definitely problematic and can increase the risk of cancer, but they also just make me feel alive. I'm telling you, there's something really powerful about greens, and there's research to suggest people who consume greens have a better functioning brain, even later in life. And so 5 servings of vegetables every single day. I also, because of my psychology of eating background, I like to focus more on what you're adding than what you're taking away, because I just think it's the psychology of it is more engaging and more fun. And then also number 4 would be natural fats. So we've always heard that fats are bad, that we should avoid it, and that's kind of old news. I hope most of us understand that, you know, we should be embracing high quality natural fats, whether that's from, you know, well raised, you know, grass fed and finished animals, or, you know, coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, and then obviously avoiding seed oils if you can, which are, you know, almost everywhere in processed foods: corn, cotton, canola, sunflower, safflower, soybean oil. These can, again, skew that ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids that live in our body. And I just got to interview Dr. Artemis Simonpoulos. Have you guys ever heard of her?
No.
Yeah, so if you ever read a journal article about this balance, omega-6 to omega-3, she's the one that you'll cite. She, in 1985, at this National Institute of Health meeting, she was kind of like one of those pioneers of the research around this balance. And essentially, when you have way too many omega-6s, like we do in America today, which has historically never been the case, and too few omega-3s, which we do because most of us aren't eating fish, and enough greens, which is where you're going to get the omega-3s, you're going to have an immune response that is more pronounced and potentially lasts longer. And we know that omega-3s too can help reduce inflammation, and they go on to produce compounds that resolve inflammation called resolvins. So making sure natural man-made fats versus natural fats versus man-made fats is the way you want to go. And then the last one is just to kind of add foods in that our culture has largely lost touch with. And for me, one of the most cancer protective would be herbs and spices. And so just making sure that you double the dose on your herbs and spices, you know, are using a array, like you just are changing up what you're using every day, you know, turmeric, ginger, rosemary, thyme. I actually have superfood golden milk, which I drink every day. We actually put some of our spices into pills just because I think that they're so medicinal and so underutilized and so important, that you just use them any way you can. But definitely, I think they should be part of the arsenal.
I love that. So, I mean, you just tackled 5 pretty simple, easy things that people can implement. And even Maria was asking when you were talking about greens, do microgreens count?
Oh yeah. Microgreens are amazing. We've just gotten into really consuming them and sprouting. And I know, you know, if you can do broccoli sprouts, microgreens, absolutely. I think the more you can add those in, the better. One of our friends has a microgreens company. So yes, we're very excited about microgreens. I think it's great. Great way to go.
My kids have way more fun eating the microgreens than even a regular salad because they just like pinching them in their fingers and chucking them in their mouth. You know, it's I don't even have to get a fork for it, Mom. Just shove it in. I'm like, exactly. Just shove it right in. But as I'm sitting here listening to you, Autumn, I'm imagining all these parents and, you know, that hour-and-a-half meeting that we've all had with our nurse practitioner or oncologist before we're sent home for the first time, and all the things that they're precautioning us on and how to take care of our babies, you know, like we're scared straight. Like we don't even, we're leaving with this immune compromised kid now. And oh my goodness, you gave me this list of things. I can't imagine what it would be like for them to just drop these 5 things of like, this is how you can support their immune system and help them thrive. And this is where I get really excited thinking, could this be the way it is, right? When cancer can come in hospital, like imagining saying these things prior to these families going home, having that availability, like this excites me. But I'm glad for those who are here that they're getting to hear this now. So, but you know, in the world now, we still are slightly backwards in the fat world. I mean, from what's being pushed on the shelves, what's in our fast food, um, what is healthy meat, and meat causing heart disease and meat causing global warming. And so where did the idea that meat is dangerous to health even come from? Like,
Oh,
I know several events had to converge, but can you help us out here?
yes, it's one of my favorite things. We're doing a docuseries about it. There's 7 episodes, but the first one, have you guys ever heard of Belinda Fettke or Gary Fettke? Okay, well, he was a doctor down in Tasmania, and he was doing some diabetic amputations. So what he realized is in his own health journey that, wow, a, lower carb diet seems to be really helpful for me in my health journey. And he started to read up on it, and he decided, oh, okay, I'm going to tell my diabetic patients that they should reduce their sugar consumption, which he did. But then he had a dietitian on staff turn him in to the medical board. And then he had went through 4 years of litigation and eventually became the first medical doctor ever silenced from talking about nutrition. And so his wife decided, after she watched him in these proceedings where he was presenting reputable science, until he's blue in the face, where did these ideas come from? Like, this doesn't seem to be about the science, because the science was there. And even the American Dietetic Association now recommends, they have a pamphlet on low carb diets. But anyway, she dove in and found that religion back in, way back when Ellen G. White founded the Seventh-day Adventist Church, she had visions that suggested that meat was sinful and it could lead to desires like sexual desires in kids. And so it became kind of part of her philosophy that we need to avoid meat. And that's actually where Kellogg's cornflakes came from, because they were trying to design a food that would reduce those urges in kids. So we had religion was one piece, and then we had sugar industry executives who saw the writing on the wall. They kind of saw, okay, sugar's going to get a bad rap. And so they actually funded some research to make it look like fat was the bad guy, right? They chose studies in those reviews, and it's kind of well known now that sugar industry execs. And then we had Ansel Keys, who did some research, and the 7-country study. And what it looked like was the more saturated fat a country ate, the worse their risk for heart disease. But we now know that he cherry-picked some of those studies, and more recent evidence has kind of called into question this association between saturated fat intake and any deleterious health outcomes. And then, of course, we have the environmental narrative, and this is another entire episode, but all of it to say, you need to know where your meat comes from if you don't want to do damage to the environment. But ethical, environmentally sustainable, and even regeneratively meat can be raised, but most people don't know that, right? And then we have animal advocates. And so you see, and we have this plant-based market that you can process plant-based, corn and soy into so many different products. And make a ton of money. That's a hugely profitable industry. And so all of these narratives kind of converge to paint the picture that meat's the bad guy, whereas it just doesn't even make sense. We've been eating it for 2 million years, right? It contains essential nutrients in a very bioavailable form. It satiates us. It's an important source of nutrition, and some of our most nutritious foods, when you look at the nutrients many people are deficient in.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like this is a History Channel right here. And I'm actually going, okay, I need to absolutely listen to that docuseries. When does that even come out? I know that's not one of my questions, but when does that come out?
You know what? I'm just finishing episode 7. And so we plan to launch it in the fall. And I'm really excited to share it because it's fascinating. And we have over 55 experts that we've featured. And I tried to keep every episode to around 20 minutes, just so it's not so overwhelming, but it's really fascinating.
I love that. So I, even in the world of butter, right? So we saw butter go out, and I can't believe it's not butter is what I grew up on. And it's like, what is that? If it's not butter, what is it? And so now I homeschool my kids, and we did this science experiment. Science. I'm like, I went through the whole process of what they do to make margarine. It's like 30 steps to go through and make that. And then I was like, okay, now we're going to make butter. And they're like, how do you make that? I'm like, heavy cream, and we're going to shake it. And they're like, that's it. And I'm like, that's it. You know, there's no bleaching, there's no deodorizing, there's none. Like, what man has done to food is really, really disgusting and highly inflammatory for our bodies.
And that's
And
one of the things I didn't even mention. That was Crisco. The creation of Crisco was basically because they had this surplus of cottonseed oil that they were using to lubricate machines. And they were like, oh, well, we should feed it to animals. But then that didn't work because the animals didn't fare well. So they're like, oh, well, we should just hydrogenate it and then feed it to people, which they did. And they, without any scientific substantiation of its benefits or detriments, they just launched a massive marketing campaign and convinced the American public that this was a cleaner, healthier alternative to animal fats. And I think that that was one of the major beginnings of our downfall, because we now know, as it was originally created, 50% of it was trans fat, which we know leads to hundreds of thousands of deaths per year. And it's now banned in our food supply, but we still have the, you know, the seed oils and the other highly processed fats that I think are equally as problematic.
yeah, I would say, I mean, I know you have your 9-year-old. What are some tricks and things up your sleeve in order to get kids to eat some of these things that aren't Cheerios, that aren't pretty colors, that, you know, what are some tricks that maybe you've figured out over the years?
Yeah, you know, it was a lot easier when he was younger. Right now that he's getting to be 9 and he's aware that we eat differently, there are more challenges. But I started with just making it fun. So our greens powder was our ninja juice, right? It made us strong, and we just educated him on what the ingredients were doing for his body. And he looks at labels now. And so I taught him to look at labels. We've taught him, you know, food builds our bodies, builds our brain, builds our immune system. Like, this is what keeps us healthy. And so also, I try to keep snacking to a minimum so that I can offer the foods I want him to eat right before dinner. And then, so yeah, so he's not just in and out of the pantry all the time. He's, you know, it's very intentional. Like, this is dinner time, you're going to wait. And then I do the fruits and the vegetables and the things that he struggles to eat right before that. And also, we don't keep it in our house. We don't keep junk in our house. And I know that's easier said than done, especially if you all are eating differently. But what we do is we go out. When we're going to have food, we call it Fun Food Friday. And we do it once a week, and he gets to pick whatever he wants. But aside from that, we kind of keep things really, really clean around the house. And also, he loves to learn, right? There's a lot of education out there around, oh, California, they were going to ban Skittles. Do you know what I mean? And educating him. Why? Why would that be happening? Okay, well, look at these colors. Look at these artificial colors. And oh, they lead to hyperactivity in certain kids. And just knowing, letting him understand that just because it's available and it's on the market doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you. And also, I encourage him to try everything at least once. I never force him to eat anything, but I do. We try one thing, we try everything, at least one bite. And then lastly, I also, the fermented foods every day. And I know this is a struggle, but it did seem to help kind of like shift the taste buds in a good direction, because most of our kids are only wanting to eat sweets. But I had him start eating a little bit of sour. And I learned this tip that you can get a kid, you know, and then if they might spit it out, but at least it's in their mouth. And right. And it's just like even that small step, and then having them try just a little bit. And so he's gotten better over time. But I think the education piece and the availability piece, just having available what you want them to eat and teaching them what exactly it's doing in their body and how it's informing their cells and making their muscles strong and building a better brain and giving them energy. That's been the most impactful for Maverick.
Wow, that's good. And I know you had talked a little bit in the beginning about vegan versus meat. So what's the differences and the benefits for eating meat for health versus the vegan diet?
Yeah. So Meat basically is a great source of very highly bioavailable amino acids, right? So it's a complete protein, whereas a lot of vegan or vegetarian protein sources are going to lack specific amino acids, which could interfere with muscle protein synthesis. And so it's the quality of the protein is different. But then the other really cool thing about it is the availability of the nutrients. And so there's a researcher named Dr. Ty Beal, and when you're looking at nutrients and how nutrient dense the food is, many people aren't considering the fact that in plant foods, there are inhibitors, nutrient inhibitors, which interfere with the absorption of things like zinc and iron, which are really, really important for the health of our immune system and just our bodies overall. And so what he did in his research is look at the foods that are most nutrient dense when you consider the bioavailability of their nutrients. And you'll see animal products are top on the list. Organ meats are, I think, something like 4 out of the top 10 are all organ meats, something that most people aren't consuming. But the beauty of animal products is the high quality protein, the bioavailable sources of nutrients, and the fact that they contain very high levels of nutrients when we compare them with plant foods. And last is that they're very, very satiating, right? And so I know most people are not necessarily looking to lose weight when they have cancer, but if you are someone who's not, that's also a major benefit. It turns on that satiety signal. There's something called the protein leverage hypothesis, and people say we're actually consuming food to get as many amino acids as possible. And until we kind of meet that quota, we're going to just be prompted to eat and eat and eat. But if we can meet that quota, then it can turn that volume down on our appetite and lead to, positive changes in body composition, and of course, help us build muscle. And the man I'm actually working for with my dissertation, he did some research looking at just an egg white or a full egg and what was better able to build muscle muscle protein synthesis. And what he found is the whole food in the way that, the whole egg was better able than just egg whites alone. And I just think it speaks to the fact that, yes, we can supplement all day long, but these whole food traditional proteins that we've been consuming for millions of years have a lot of benefits.
Yeah. Being satiated is a huge thing, especially someone had commented on, when they're on steroids during treatment, they're wanting to get snacks all the time. And so giving them something else that's actually going to hold them over versus, I don't know, I was told multiple times to just give the kids flaming hot Cheetos.
Oh,
Giving them the most inflammatory foods, and there's nothing that's satiating them. It's just going right through them. And so things, again, I wish we would be told from the very beginning, right? And so I'm glad that you guys are here to listen to this right now. And hopefully these are some of the things that you're already doing. If there's one thing that you heard from Autumn's top 5 that you haven't started doing yet, maybe put that in the chat and just let us know if that's something that you are definitely going to start paying attention to. Maybe moving away from just non-organic produce to organic produce to reduce the amount of glyphosate that you and your child are consuming, or if it's switching over to grass-fed meat. So just letting us know if there's something that you're going to be changing over. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. What other questions do I have here? Oh, this is a really good question. And I think that as consumers, we need to know that the labeling world is not here for us, that they love to trick us. They now have words in which they can use and hide things. And I was flabbergasted when I was like, what? There's a difference between free range and cage free. And why are they able to use these different, they're just trying to confuse us or make us think that these are happier, healthier chickens. So what are some of the tricky labels that us as consumers that we need to be aware of when we're purchasing meat products?
Yes, there's so many of them. And okay, so I'll break it down. First is natural. I don't know, like 50% of consumers actually look for the word natural, but it means absolutely nothing about how the animal is raised. It just means you can't add any artificial additives, but it's like, well, we shouldn't be doing that anyway. So natural is one. The second one is going to surprise people. Well, actually, I'm not going to go there yet. Like you said, free range and cage free. So if you see this on actual chicken, it means nothing because most chickens aren't raised in cages, for cage free at least. But also you need to know that you can have a cage free animal is still thousands of animals in a warehouse, right? And even free range, you would think that means out on pasture, and it doesn't. It could still mean that they're in warehouses and they just have to have access. Like it could be like a door off far in the back that they never even use, that doesn't even go to pasture, that just goes to a concrete plot. So you really want to do pastured chickens whenever possible. It's harder to find, but it's definitely way different than cage free and free range. And then we have grass fed. This is so sad because in 2016, they took away the regulation for this label, and all cows are grass fed for the first part of their life. But it's what happens in the finishing period, or, you know, the 90 or 120 days before they're harvested, that can dramatically change the nutrient composition of the animal. And so you want to see something like grass fed and grass finished might be more trustworthy. But really what we need to do in this day and age is look for those third party certifications, like an American Grass Fed Association. This body goes in and checks on the practices, whereas a lot of these other claims are just affidavits. So the farmers will just say, these are my practices, and no one really checks on that. Another one is raised in America, which is really sad because, you know, you want to think that anything that says made in America is actually made in America, but it's not. It could still be imported and then just processed in America. And they are in the process of working on this label, but for right now, that isn't a trustworthy one either. And then raised without antibiotics. I think antibiotic resistance is one of the largest looming global threats. And you can use, you know, raised without growth promotants. Basically, people can say they're not using them for growth promotion, but still be using them to prevent illness. And they can say they're not using medically important antibiotics, but they can still be using other antibiotics, right? They can still be using compounds called ionophores. Moms across America have done some research on the presence of ionophores and the risks with them. So raised without antibiotics isn't always what we think it is. And sadly, organic. This is my last one. I don't want to break any hearts, but it's a step in the right direction, right? We're not going to be using this. This is specifically as it pertains to meat. I think organic produce, obviously, as we talked about earlier, is great. But animals that are raised organically can still be fed corn and soy. They can still be in confinement. They only have to be out on pasture for 120 days. And so it is a step in the right direction. As I've said, we're going to not have those residues, but we still might have a relatively inflammatory fatty acid profile. And so, like I said, 100% grass-fed and finished cows, you know, with some third-party certification like the American Grass Fed Association is great. When it comes to pork and chicken, we're going to look for pasture raised whenever possible, because pork actually has one of the most inflammatory omega-6 to 3 ratios of any product. Same goes with eggs, right? Pastured eggs as well. And so, yeah, hopefully that wasn't too bad, but grass-fed and grass-finished, pastured.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like we need to get our doctorates in label reading just to understand it, because, you know, you have even the word, you know, natural flavors. What actually can be hidden in there? Fragrance, what can be hidden in there? There's all of these words now that they're hiding all these things that they just don't want to put on the labels. So now that we know, okay, the difference between free range and organic and so forth, there was a question that says, is there any truth to eating eggs every day being harmful for the body or harmful to us?
Okay. Well, I mean, there's interesting thing. If there's two things, I mean, I guess if you're sensitive to eggs, that might be a problem. But if we're worried about cholesterol, We know that the American Dietary Guidelines actually remove dietary cholesterol doesn't necessarily raise serum cholesterol. And that's something even our dietary guidelines have now acknowledged. They've taken out, they still recommend a diet relatively low in cholesterol, but we know that the association isn't clear like we thought it was. And so I think if you're someone who's not sensitive to eggs, I think it's a great idea to eat eggs. I think they're, like nature's multivitamin. They're great for your brain. But again, we have bio individuality. What's good for you isn't necessarily good for everybody, but I've never heard of any legitimate research saying that eggs every day would be problematic. In fact, it's something I do almost daily.
Same here. Same here. Okay, I know this talk wasn't necessarily about your products, but obviously you do have some of the best products. And we have a question in regards to that specifically for kids. So someone has a 4-year-old, and we are huge advocates for your organ complex and the nutrient factor behind that, and knowing that that is so good. But any ideas on how to incorporate that, whether it's into a smoothie or snacks, or the best ways to get a 4-year-old to take the organ complex?
I love that. Yes. And my little guy's been taking it, our little guy, for a long time. And so I taught him to swallow pills very easy early. I don't know that it was 4, but before that, I would put it in, just sprinkle it on eggs. That one you can get away with, or a smoothie. Yes. Definitely a smoothie. Those are my two go-tos. Yeah. Just sprinkling it on things. I did try to get him to actually eat liver. That didn't go as well, but yeah, smoothie on eggs, and eventually just teaching kids to swallow pills as early as you can. That's how I did it.
Does it change the taste profile on the eggs at all? Because I've never tried opening the capsule. Obviously, I can swallow it, but
Yeah, you're gonna have to sprinkle lightly. You know what I mean? Or just throughout the day, because it does. It's not like it's tasteless. It's definitely not tasteless. But if you do it in small doses here and there, it can be done. No, that would be my best one. Eggs was the only, there's been other ones I've tried, but that's worked the best. Also on like a hamburger. I don't know, my little guy really loved a good hamburger, and you can get away with sprinkling it a little bit in there too. Especially if you're working with a bun, it can definitely work there too.
We always recommend mixing it in taco meat. So like once the taco meat's cooked and they've seasoned it with all of the normal seasonings, then you just open up a couple capsules and mix it in. And generally there's enough flavor in the taco meat, and they add their veggies and their cheese and all of that. And it's a good way to hide it. Another mom in our program just told me she opened up the capsule and mixed it. They made a homemade pizza, and they used, it wasn't Maria. Maria made a homemade pizza with a chicken and Parmesan crust, by the way, which I was like, brilliant. But this, I don't remember, I think it was an almond flour crust, but she made this pizza, and she said she opened up, get this, 8 organ complex capsules, mixed it in the tomato basil or tomato pesto sauce after she baked it. Cause I kind of recommend don't like cook it again. And I don't know if that's relevant, Autumn, but I always say don't like recook organ meats.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
So she baked the pizza, the crust, then she warmed the sauce on the stovetop, put the pesto and tomato sauce on top of the pizza, but mixed in 8 organ complex capsules first. And she said, my husband didn't even know.
Wow.
I know. I'm like, these are really creative. So Elizabeth, I want you to try that and let me know if Natalia is like game or if she's like, peace out, mom. This was horrible.
I feel like that's pure magic right there. Like that's beautiful. Maybe it's
the
acidity in the tomato. I don't know.
That's genius.
I love it. Well, I do want to be able to open this up. I know we had some questions in the chat, but if there's anyone that wanted to unmute themselves and ask some questions for Autumn before she leaves us, and we move on to just questions for our kit or just parent time, where you're at, how you're doing. Any questions for Autumn?
I have a question. So, I mean, we're fans of many of your products, but Tell me some, and I think this would be helpful for everybody. Like, what are like your top 5 products on your site that you would feed to a child who had cancer?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think definitely our Essential C would be my favorite. And of course, I love the beef sticks and the meat sticks. They're just the cleanest, high quality source of protein that you can find. Absolutely the organ complex, because we're supporting, your immune system, vitamin A, we've got iron, it's unless you're having iron related issues. Definitely that. And this one, ooh, I think the superfood golden milk could be something I'd really like too. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that. It's one of my favorites, but it has, the turmeric and the ginger, and it's delicious. And it's something I can actually get my little guy to enjoy for sure. Oh, and my last one, you know, I think this is so hard. I would probably go with the super greens, because
Mhm.
I just think it has so many different wonderful, kale and broccoli and all those foods we're talking about that kids might be a little reticent to consume. And then it also has really high quality spirulina that's been third party tested for all the heavy metals and contaminants and things like that. But that just makes getting those vegetables a lot easier for kids. So I think those would be my top 5.
And the only one I would add to that, I agree with all of that 100%, is I know with the kids that we work really closely with, the bone broth protein powder has been really helpful. And what's interesting is like my son does the chocolate flavor. Both my kids love it. They like both the vanilla and the chocolate. I don't love the stevia flavor, so I prefer the plain. And the plain has no flavor. And so if you're not sure if your child's going to like a flavor, the plain is awesome because you can literally mix it in anything and they won't know. Of course, it's a powder, so you have to be careful, but it's a really good way to keep weight on kids, and just to kind of give them that extra protein and the benefits of bone broth. So that would be the only one I would add to that, is the bone broth protein powder. And try the plain if you're not sure if your kid will like the vanilla or chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're coming out with
actually,
salted caramel too, which should be
Oh,
I think it's our best. I think it's by far the best. So yes, I love that. And my little guy, we make him hot chocolate with it all the time. And it is one of his favorites too.
And guys,
yeah.
I want to let everybody know, I'm going to put the link to Paleovalley in the chat, but Paleovalley actually gives a kickback to Kick Cancer with this link. So when you order through this link, you are actually giving back to Kick Cancer, which is very cool. And then I also put our birthday link for anybody who wants to support the campaign and give us a little birthday present.
Yay.
Any other questions?
That was so
No.
helpful.
And I'm excited because next month we have Raw Farm coming on, Mark McAfee, who's the owner of Raw Farm. And Mark is coming on to talk about preserving your immune system amid therapies that are trying to tear it down. And he is a passionate human. And so I just feel like if we're coming from this and then going into that, it's going to be like the perfect segue.
Oh yeah, I remember he was at the conference and he was standout. He was one of the people who actually inspired me to get into this field in the very beginning when I was in California, and I heard one of his talks and I thought, wow, this is really cool. So yay.
Yeah, I feel like you have equal passion. Like I've seen you just rise in this like commitment and desire to truly like make waves and really change. Like there's something about being passionate about something and then deciding to go, nope, I'm passionate, but I'm going to actually be a part of the change. And like you are totally like Mark in that, where you're like, no, I'm all in. Here I go.
Oh,
Pretty
and like you and all of you. So thank you. I appreciate that.
I love it. And I was going to say, if you guys have missed any of our previous Thrive Together talks, we do have our Kick Cancer YouTube channel with like a whole 5 subscribers. So go and watch some of the replays on the videos. I know we're newbies on YouTube.
We just launched. So
We just launched.
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know. And Maria, your hand is up. I'd love for you to ask your question. Can you unmute?
I wonder if I can unmute her.
You might need to. I'll ask to
Nope.
unmute.
No. Oh, there she goes. Oh, no, we still can't hear you. You can, if we can't figure it out, we can always, you can always type it to me. Sorry, Maria.
It doesn't say you're muted, but for some
I
reason I
know.
can't hear you.
While she's trying to figure it out, Maria is actually the mom who is helping us on the ground in Miami, helping us launch this really amazing advocacy program. So you guys, Season and I literally had a conversation about like, how cool would it be if we had an advocacy program where we could get into the hospitals. And then here comes Maria, and she's like, hey guys, do you want to come into the hospital? I got you in. And we're like,
Can you guys hear me now?
yay, we can hear you.
Okay.
It had to be your
Sorry.
headphones.
Yeah, I had to take it off. So really quickly, it's not a question. It's more of like a very amazing thing. Season knows. Last time Mateo was inpatient, which was in May. The nutritionist, the oncology nutritionist, she's not a fan of me. She comes in and she has to come in. Like, it's mandatory that they come in and check with us. And obviously we're cordial. We're not like, nothing bad has happened. She's just not a fan, because every question that she asks me, my answer to her is no. So she's like, how's Mateo doing? How's everything? And I tell her super good, all of that. And she's like, and have you been doing and then she asked me, I don't know the name, like this powder that has all of the oils in the world that they wanted us to give him. And I was like, no, we don't need to give him that. He's not losing any weight. And he's been doing really good. He stops, he's maintained the whole thing. And I said, but I am giving him organ complex, and I give her the bottle. Like, I did this obviously on purpose. And she's like, what is that? And I'm like, and I said, well, you're young and like hip. You should be like in the know of these things. No, I honestly. And she's like, can I take the bottle? And I'm like, yeah, you can take the bottle. And she took the bottle and she like took pictures, and she's like, do you consume anything else from them? And I'm like, a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, and Dr. Fader knows. So Dr. Fader is Mateo's oncologist, and she's like, she like, I don't know if she hates me or not, but the fact of the matter is that today when we went in for a visit for clinic, she saw me and she's like, oh my God, Mateo is doing so well, this and that. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, are you still giving organ complex? And I'm like, yep, every day, twice a day, and she's like, oh my God. But like, you could see they don't, it's really shocking for these people. And I'm talking, she's a very nice, person. She's relatively young. I'm sure she's younger than me. So it blows my mind that people that are younger are so taboo about these things. And like, I would embrace it. I would be like, tell me more. The oncologist is, our oncologist is amazing. She accidentally jumped on the call yesterday. I was like mortified. I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna fire me. She's not gonna be our oncologist
On our
anymore.
live, she's talking about she accidentally
our
jumped
live,
onto
yeah.
our live call on Instagram. Like all of a sudden she's like there.
But she's like a fan. And what I was gonna tell you finally is that the Dr. Fader, she ordered and she's like, I'm doing organ complex too. And I'm like dying here. So there you go.
That's amazing.
Mama, that's exactly what we need. That made my day. Thank you for all of that. And
That was so funny. So I
great.
wanted to share.
Very cool.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that.
Thank you.
I love when we ruffle some feathers in the hospital, because that's where we need to make the change. I'm outside of treatment with my daughter, and I remember back then our oncologist saying the words, well, we don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it and tell others. But now, we're outside of treatment, we're outside the hospital, and Maria, you're in there, you're making changes, you're asking the right questions, and you're also keeping peace just enough, And
Yeah.
so
And we're out too. We're done. Thankfully, but now I'm in there and they know. And, they refer me as if I was someone. They're like, talk to this parent. What are you doing? And I'm like, don't worry, we're coming. We're legitly coming to the hospital.
yes. I'm super excited to get to meet you, Maria, and
Likewise.
discuss this more. I'm so excited to have you on board and working alongside us right now. Like, it's incredibly important, and obviously continuing to speak about the products that we love and know so much. And thank you, Autumn, for being the forefront on that mission, and just being that person who in the very beginning questions,
Mhm.
there is something wrong, and whatever's happening conventionally is not working. And so thank you for diving into that, and then just joining our two worlds right here. So this has been very profound, and I hope that you guys found this as beneficial. So we're going to say goodbye to Autumn. If there's anything else that you wanted to say before you go, and then we're just going to open it up to any cancer mamas or parents that wanted to stay, ask questions, or just be.
Yeah.
Autumn, anything else?
Well, I just want to say thanks for letting me be here. And honestly, you guys are very inspiring to me. I have had experiences in hospitals and I know how easy it is to not say anything. But the fact that you guys are charging forward and creating all of these great changes and these ripples that will become tides that will hopefully transform a system is like super inspiring to me. So thanks for letting me be here. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you, Autumn. Appreciate you.
Bye.
All right, for everyone else that is still here and hasn't left us